Welcome to the Nutmeg Notebook Mexican Fiesta cooking webinar. When I announced that I was doing a cooking class for Mexican food, a lot of viewers that live outside of the Sacramento area asked me if I would videotape it and provide it as a webinar that they could watch because they can't attend my class. And I thought that was a great idea. So Tom and I decided to videotape it. So for today's menu, we are going to have taco lentils, Katy's refried beans, chili lime jicama, Tami's easy red salsa, easy salsa verde, Dreena Burton's white bean guacamole, baked corn tostadas and chips, vegan jalapeno queso sauce, cilantro, lime, brown rice, and of course you have to have dessert, banana mango lime ice cream. You will get all of the recipes in a PDF, so don't worry if I don't mention the exact amount of ingredients while the recipes are being demonstrated, because you'll have all of that information on your computer. So I hope you enjoy this class. I do want to tell you that at a couple of points our camera malfunctioned while we were videotaping. So we retaped those segments and added them in. So if my hair looks a little bit different or the scenery in the background seems to change all of a sudden, you'll know what had happened. I hope you enjoy this webinar and the recipes that you're going to learn how to make. Enjoy. Okay, well, thank you all for being here today. We're going to get started with this menu for a Mexican fiesta. I think that serving ethnic food for a company is one of the easiest things to do when you're plant-based and you have meat eaters coming, because so many ethnic foods are naturally meat-free and they don't even realize it. So, you know, you can set this up, a buffet of this food that I'm going to show you today, and even the meat eaters are going to love it because we have meat eaters in our family. So we're going to start with these taco lentils, and this is a recipe. This got really hot. This is a recipe that I have on the blog, but I have adapted it to the pressure cooker because so many of us, how many have pressure cookers? Oh yeah, okay, you're in, yay! So we're gonna start by water sauteing these onions. Now this is a really strong, oh, did you see that piece of onion go flying? This is a really strong onion. You're gonna be able to smell this right away, I think. So what we really like about these, I hate to use the word meaty, but they're kind of meaty because, you know, the lentils, the brown lentils, kind of retain their shape and they have a little bit of bite to them, and so they have a really good texture, and they're wonderful for tacos or taco salad or nachos. We like to make nachos with them too, and this makes a really big batch, but they freeze well. So if you've watched my YouTube videos or follow my blog, you know that I love to batch cook because I don't want to spend all my time in the kitchen. And so I like things that make a large quantity, and then I can portion these out into 2-person servings and pop them in my freezer. And then, you know, on a busy night, we can come home and just pull those out of the freezer, defrost them quickly in the microwave, or we can put them in a skillet with a little bit of water and heat them up pretty fast that way too. And we can do so many different things with them. It makes it really fun. And like I said, even the meat eaters really like these because they have a lot of texture to them. So I should have sauteed these ahead of time. It would have saved a little bit of time. You probably don't even have to saute them in the Instant Pot. Catherine's going, yeah, probably not, because I have other recipes that don't require it, and you know, everything turns out fine because they really do get soft in the pressure cooker. So love that. Okay, let's see. We're going to go ahead and add the little bit of garlic.
Would it make any difference in taste if you sauteed them in oil? I guess it would, huh?
Well, you would have the flavor of the oil, but it's really not necessary. and we don't eat oil. We have an oil-free diet, and so and you and you won't miss them. You won't miss the oil because these have so much flavor. Now, one thing that I like to do, and I learned this from Chef AJ, is recipes that I make frequently. Just save your spice jars when they get empty, run them through the dishwasher, soak the labels off, and then, like the taco lentils is something that I make frequently, so I can just fill 2 or 3 bottles all at the same time because, get all those spices out because you can see there's quite a few different spices that are in this dish. And fill the bottles up, label them, and then when you're ready to make it, it's all ready to go. You don't have to refill it every time. You don't have to drag all of the spices out. So it's a real time saver to do that.
And you've got that recipe also in here for the spice?
All of the ingredients are listed.
Okay.
Okay, so these are getting nice and soft. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add all of my ingredients. So I've got the lentils in there. These are the tomatoes I like to use. These are the organic Muir Glen tomatoes. These are BPA-free cans, and these are fire roasted. And the fire roasted just have more flavor to them, and so they really lend themselves well to Mexican food. And these are on sale right now at Whole Foods, and so you want to go stock up. So I think the sale goes through this coming Wednesday, I think. So if you look on their tags, they tell on the bottom of their sale tags how long the sale is for, because we were there the other day to pick up stuff for the class, and I said, oh, I don't really want to take time, to do all these canned goods right now. And so we looked on the tag and it was like, oh, we've got a few days, we'll go back. But I stock up on them when they're on sale because we use a lot of them. So I'm just going to stir that in and then put my seasonings in. And this has a lot of stuff in it, but it's really good. And remember that recipes are just an idea. So if you don't like a particular spice, don't use that spice. You can substitute something else you like. If these are too spicy for you, you can cut back on the amount of chili powder that's in them or the cumin that's in them. Baking is precise measurements because it's all about chemistry. And so, you can't mess with baking recipes like you can with cooking recipes. Cooking recipes, they're just an idea, just to give you an idea of what to do. And so don't get hung up on, I don't have the exact ingredients. Thank you, Tom. So now I'm going to push cancel. And I'm going to put the lid on. Come on. Now, why do you not want to cooperate? There. Has a mind of its own. And we are going to set it for 8 minutes, but Tom's going to move it out of the way, and he's going to put it over there to let it do its cooking so that I can move on to the next recipe. And then, oh, you know what? I added the tomatoes, and I shouldn't have. Because they were sitting there. I usually add them at the end. Well, they'll probably be fine. I usually cook them first and then add the can of tomatoes. Thank you.
What's the setting on this?
Okay, that's 8 minutes. So do manual and then do the minus sign and bring it down to 8 minutes.
Okay.
Now the tomatoes might make them a little bit tougher, the lentils a little bit tougher, but we'll see, because I made a batch for you last night where I added the tomatoes at the end.
Oh, so we can just keep those in a separate.
Yeah, and they'll probably be fine. So any questions about the taco lentils?
Do you rinse the lentils first?
No, I didn't rinse those lentils. I laid them out. I looked through them to make sure there weren't any pebbles in them, but I didn't rinse the lentils. So if I was doing it on my own, I could, but to pre-do them before the class, what I have found is then they get stuck together and become really hard, and then it's hard for me to break them apart. But if you're doing it at home and you do it right away, rinse them, and then put them in your Instant Pot, they won't all stick together. But if you do it in advance, they stick together and become hard. Yes?
What is Table Tasty?
Oh, let me show you. Actually, I have a bag up here. Table Tasty is a salt substitute, and it's really one of the best tasting ones. And there isn't any place locally to buy it, but we get this from, I order it off of Amazon, and it has a really wonderful flavor. Because we eat a very low sodium diet. I don't usually add salt to the food when we cook it. Just, you know, there's so much sodium in our food that we don't need to be adding a lot of salt. So this is what we like to use, and it really does have a nice salty flavor to it. So, and because we use quite a bit of it, I'll order the big bag and then just refill my container, and that works really well. So that's really, it is really tasty. They've got the right name for it.
When do you add the tomatoes then?
Usually when that gets done, I'm going to let it come down, do natural pressure, and then I usually add the tomatoes at the end. You ready to move on to the next one? Okay, so now we're going to do the refried beans. So Tom, I need you to plug this little guy in for me. So we love Mexican food at our house. We don't get tired of it. And our kids like Mexican food. And so I already cooked the beans because, you know, they take too long in real time to do. And I cooked these in my slow cooker. And although you can cook the beans in the pressure cooker, and I did yesterday just to save time because I also made another batch of these, but we like the flavor better when they're made in the slow cooker. The broth, the bean broth, just has so much more flavor when it cooks for that little longer time. So I know people are always saying, you're kidding, you still make them in the slow cooker? But I do. We just like the flavor better. So, yeah.
How long did you cook the beans?
I do about 4 hours, and it depends on the cooker. So this one runs really, really hot. This is a really old slow cooker, and it runs really hot, and I think the regulations on them or something have changed because I have a newer one and it doesn't run as hot as this one does. So this one, it takes about 4 hours for them on high. And so I gave you directions on the page after the recipe on how I make them in the slow cooker. And then I also gave you directions on how to make them in the pressure cooker. And so we also use a little bit of the kombu, and I'll show you what that is. It's like a seaweed, and this is supposed to help the beans be less gassy. And I don't know if it really does or not, but it also adds a nice flavor to the beans. It has a little bit of a salty flavor to it. And I buy that at Whole Foods. So in the ethnic food aisle, they have the little bags. You know, they have a lot of seasonings and different things on kind of like a pegboard, and that's where I buy it. And you just need just a little piece of it, and it just kind of disintegrates and runs into the beans. So, Tom, I'm going to have you open that. I went ahead, because it takes quite a while, I went ahead and sauteed the onions, the green pepper, the jalapeno, the garlic, because it takes about a half an hour to get them to the consistency that I want. As you can see that these are really cooked down. I don't want them to be hard at all. I want them to be really, really soft because I just want them to kind of melt into my beans. So I'm just going to get them going on the induction plate here and get it warm. And then we'll start adding the cooked beans. Now, in the slow cooker, I use 6.5 cups of water. And when I make them in the pressure cooker, I use more water. If you make the beans in the pressure cooker for this recipe, you're not going to use all of the liquid that's in there. I'll probably use most of the liquid out of the slow cooker because it just, it's less and it's thicker than the liquid that results from cooking them in the Instant Pot. So I'm just learning how to use this induction plate, and it's so different. Edith, do you use one? Yeah, and it's so different than, you know, I'm used to a gas stove, and this is so different. So the heat is all pretty centered at the beginning in the middle of the pan, and I'm used to my gas stove and stovetop and every, you know, the heat being well distributed. Okay, so I'm going to start with using a ladle, and Tom, I'm going to need a slotted spoon too. And so what I do, so you can see the beans here, and so I just start ladling them in, and I'm going to need the potato masher, and I like that wire one better. Now, lots of different ways to go about doing your beans. My daughter's mother-in-law likes hers to be satiny smooth, so she takes and puts them in the blender and makes them super creamy. Now, we like them to be a little more chunky. So now I'm just taking the potato masher and I'm just going to mash them down. Now, you could completely mash them if you wanted to. So it's up to you. Whatever kind of texture you like is okay. But we like, you know, some of the beans to still be whole. Oh, it smells so good, doesn't it? Yeah. It smells really good. Okay, and then I'm going to add some more. Now, I think you could freeze these too. I never do because we eat them. So we like them, you know, with rice. We like to make nachos with them. We like to just cook up a bunch of greens and have in our bowl, we have, we call it a trio or a nourish bowl. And we'll have like a third of it be beans, a third of it will be steamed greens, and a third of it be brown rice. And it's just so good. Yeah, those are all in the recipe. It lists all the spices. So now I'm just using the slotted spoon to get these beans And the great thing is, if it cooks down and gets a little too thick, then you've got the bean juice to add to it. And so what we do is then we like to let it simmer for a while and get thick. And it just seems to make the flavor just that much better. And you can do it, thanks honey, and you can also do this with pinto beans. We just happen to like black beans a little bit better, but it's also good with pinto beans. Oh, and I also wanted to say how long it takes to cook them, either in the pressure cooker or in the slow cooker. That can really vary, and when you look at recipes, it'll give you usually a time span, 22 to 28 minutes in the pressure cooker, and part of it depends on how old the beans are, So even when you buy them at a store that has a lot of turnover, who knows how long those beans were in a warehouse someplace, right? So unless you're buying like the heirloom beans like Rancho Gordo or, some of the pricier beans where they have a lot of turnover and they only grow a small quantity of them, you don't know how old the beans are. The older they are, the longer they'll take to cook. So if you check the slow cooker or the pressure cooker and they're not quite done, just cook them a little bit longer. So in the pressure cooker, maybe just cook them another, 3 to 5 minutes and see what happens. So this is what they're looking like. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a can of these Hatch green chilies. You don't have to add these if you don't want to. When the Hatch chilies are showing up in the stores, I buy a lot of them and I have Tom grill them, and then I freeze them after they're cooked, but we ran out a long time ago. And sometimes Trader Joe's will have them frozen and they have no sodium in them, where the canned ones do have sodium. Yeah, that has to go in too. Oh, you want the can. Now my daughter likes to add another bay leaf. We cook the beans with a bay leaf, and she likes to add another bay leaf for the simmering part. So I'm doing that. But we just like the flavor that those chilies add. And, again, you can adjust the spices on this. And also the peppers. So if you don't like the flavor of jalapeno or serrano chilies, just don't add them and have a more mild refried bean. Okay, I'm going to let Tom take this to the stove now.
So this is the texture, so because we're kind of leaving some structure to
Yeah, so he'll simmer them for just a little bit longer, and you can add some of the juice if you need to.
You done with this guy?
Yeah, I'm done with him now.
All right, and it needs to cool up before I completely unfold it, so.
You just slide it.
And then it's just
So
kind of
questions.
What size can?
What size can was the?
4 ounces?
Yes, it's just the 4 ounce
Of what?
of the Hatch green chilies.
And I didn't understand why you add more water in the Instant Pot than you do in the slow cooker.
Yeah, just, you know what? It just seems to require a little more water. And it doesn't, I don't know if for some reason, it doesn't get as thick either. Even,
Well, it won't get thick because you have more water.
yeah, but our daughter has made them many times in there, and she said when she uses the 6.5 cups of water, it's not enough. And so I have always used more water because she said they would just turn hard in the instant press. You haven't had that? And it could have just been the beans she was buying. Yeah.
I have that same experience with putting less than 8 cups in a pound of black beans.
Uh-huh.
The beans come out of the top of the water and remain
hard. That's what was happening to her. So she told me, Mom, you have to use 8 cups. 8 cups of water.
That's in a slow cooker.
That's in the pressure cooker. In the pressure cooker. In the Instant Pot. Yeah. And it just doesn't, I don't know. I just have better luck. I have better luck with a slow cooker. I mean, I made them yesterday in the pressure cooker, a pound of black beans with 8 cups of water and a bay leaf and the kombu. And, you know, and they came out nice and tender, and but they didn't have the flavor that these beans today have. The beans today just, I don't know what it is, but they have better flavor. And I don't pre-soak my beans. We like the flavor. It seems like when we pre-soak them and you throw that water away, the flavor is really, really different. And our daughter told me that Hispanic people do not soak their beans in her experience because they like all the flavor from those beans. So, yes.
Not to confuse things here, but the Instant Pot I have has a slow cooker mode. Have you ever tried cooking the beans in the
I haven't used the slow cooker, but absolutely you could.
I wonder if the difference is the ceramic versus the steel.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I hadn't thought about that. That would be a good experiment to do. But I have never used the slow cooker function on my Instant Pot. I know my mom uses it on hers, but I haven't used it.
I just think the time is, it's the slowness of cooking them.
I think it is.
It has more time. It's like having leftovers. Sometimes they're better than
Yes.
because all the spices get in.
Absolutely. I agree. So, any other questions about the beans? No. Okay.
So you have half a teaspoon of salt. Do you feel it really adds to it?
You know, and even in yes, it does. In the beans, it really does. Even in the Esselstyn's How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease cookbook, in their refried beans, they add salt to them. And even though they are advocates for no salt, they add salt to them. So it just adds a nice flavor.
You've tried the table tasty and it just doesn't have the same.
No, it doesn't.
It's very dilute. I mean, for the entire
Pound,
Is half a teaspoon. I mean, it's a very small amount of salt. So next, well, actually, you know what, Tom? Let's go ahead and make the salsa before we do the jicama.
Okay.
So we like salsa all year long, but you know, this time of year, you just cannot get good tomatoes to make like pico de gallo or, you know. So I have a recipe. Why is this in here? We've got to move that cord because it's not sitting still. There we go. Now it's good.
It was a little unstable.
So again, I'm going to use my favorite tomatoes. And I came up with this recipe so that we could have good...
Using the plunger or the lid?
Probably better bring me the plunger just in case, but
Here.
I shouldn't need it. So again, the fire roasted tomatoes because they
Do they go
have
in
so
now?
much flavor. Yes, they do.
Which recipe are you on right now?
I skipped over to Tami's Easy Red Salsa. So, so I started making these, the salsa, and my daughter and son-in-law really like it too. So what's that tell you? It's good. If it got approved by our Honduran son-in-law. So I have half a medium onion, and if your onion is really strong, like I bought some not so long ago at Costco, and first of all, they were huge, you know. And so when I went to make a recipe and it said 1 large onion, and I pulled that out and started chopping it, and then I was like, this is like the size of 2 onions, you know, so you have to keep that in mind. But they were also really, really strong. And my daughter told me when she encounters one like that, what she does is she puts it in a strainer and runs cold water over it. And that seems to help. It, you know, kind of takes away some of the juices. Those juices are really strong, and so that really helps. So that's a tip for you. to remember. So we're just gonna put this in. Now, you can really blend this a lot if you prefer a smoother salsa. You know, like some of the restaurants, theirs is really, really smooth. Or you can have it be chunkier. So it's whatever you want to do. But you just don't want to turn up, if you make it in a Vitamix or a Blendtec, you don't want to turn it up really high because then it gets foamy. How do I know that? Because I tried, right? Thought, oh, I can make this faster. No, then I had foam going. And so now I'm just going to put in my onion. And this is just, it's such a good salsa. And so if you're doing like a really big group, you can add more. So, and I have my jalapeno already cut up in here. And I did de-seed it. And it's always a good idea to use gloves when you're dealing with the hot peppers. If you've ever cut one and then like touched your eye or your mouth. I know, me too, right? And it's painful. It is so painful. Now this has an unusual ingredient in it. It has a little balsamic vinegar. And I didn't have that in my original recipe, but what evolved is a restaurant that we like to eat at, their salsa, I found out, has a little bit of balsamic in it. And it also has oregano. And it just gives it a really nice flavor. And when I found that out, I was like, that's what I was tasting in their salsa. And it was like, oh, that's so good. And it really does, it adds something to it. And so then we're just gonna blend it a little bit. I'm still getting used to this Vitamix. I had a Blendtec and we switched over to a Vitamix, so I'm still learning. I'm just going to stop it and get those onions that are stuck. The Vitamix is a lot quieter than my Blendtec, and I really, really like it. And I love having the plunger. And I just want to make sure that those jalapeno pieces get chopped up in there. And you could do this in a food processor too. And this is just the consistency that I like. I like it a little chunky. You see this?
Yeah.
Can you smell it? Yum, huh? Yeah. You guys see it? See? Nice. Yeah, you smell the oregano in it too. Yeah, the oregano and the cilantro. And I had never put oregano in it before, but I really like it. It just adds a really nice flavor. You guys see? Isn't it pretty?
Beautiful.
And it looks like restaurant salsa, right?
It freezes well too.
I have never tried freezing it because, you know, it goes quickly. But you know, I always say just try a small amount of something if you want to see if it's going to freeze or not, because you don't want to ruin a whole large amount of things. But try a small amount and see. Because, you know, there's things like salad dressings and hummus, all kinds of things that you wouldn't think of freezing that really do freeze well. So you can make them in large batches. Snack. I just use regular Kirkland. I'll show you, just the regular Kirkland. Yeah, this was the balsamic that I used in it. This is just the Kirkland.
Okay, Tami, they want to know what it is.
Okay.
What is it?
All right, so what we're passing out, this is jicama. And this is a street food in Mexico. So the jicama, do you love it? It's so good and crunchy and So it's just, this is something that my daughter taught us to eat. And so it's just a fun little snack or an appetizer. So if you're having people over and you're going to do like a Mexican meal, this is just a fun little appetizer because most people haven't had it. And so I bought 3 jicamas because I wanted to have one to show you what it looks like. And one of them was actually not good inside. So I ended up having to use 2, so I don't have one to show you. It kind of looks like a giant turnip, almost like it's a root vegetable, and it's brown. And you know, the bigger they get, the woodier they are. So when you see them in the store, you actually want to buy the smaller ones because they are sweeter and less fibrous. And
the skin off, right?
and you have to peel it, and they're really tough to peel.
I know.
It is work. So I have, there's different kinds of vegetable peelers. So the one that I find works really good on the tougher skinned vegetables are ones like this or like this. Okay. So this one I got at Sur La Table. I think 3 of them came in the package, and it was like $5.99 for 3 of them. And it's the KUHNRIKON is the brand, and this works really well. This works good for like butternut squash even when I try to peel a butternut squash. And this is I think this was a KitchenAid one, but this type seems to work better than the one that's long and skinny. Okay, so that's what I found worked well. And so you just peel it, and you have to make sure you get all the brown off, and then there's kind of a little fibrous layer underneath the brown skin, and so you want to get that off. And then I just slice it into rounds, and then take those rounds and cut it like French fry shapes. And then that's just chili powder sprinkled over the top. And this is no salt chili powder. This one is the Spice Hunter brand, and I really like it. It has a nice mild flavor, and I get it at Sprouts.
What are some other spices that would be good to sprinkle on that?
I think you could do cayenne pepper, a little bit of cayenne pepper.
It tastes really good plain.
It does taste good plain. It's wonderful chopped up in salads, just to put it in salads.
It's good with hummus.
It's good with hummus.
And at Trader Joe's, you can buy it already cut.
Yes.
So you can in a hurry.
So did you hear Kathy? At Trader Joe's in the produce section, you can buy it already cut, which is such a super saver.
And to add to that, they have a chili lime seasoning that you can just sprinkle under, but I think it has.
It does have salt in it. Yeah, it does have salt. But you can also do this with mango. So you can take mango, and I'm really lazy. I buy the mango already cut at Costco, which my daughter just has a fit because she's like, Mom, if you buy them yourself and let them get ripe and cut them, they're even better. But I don't like the mess of it. So I buy the little container. I think it's like $7. And you can do the same thing. So you can cut the mango into strips like this, squeeze lime juice on it, and sprinkle chili powder over it, and that's a fun snack also. Yes, Joe.
Roasted corn on the cob. It's good on roasted corn.
Oh, yes. We love lime juice on roasted corn, and that's how they make it in Honduras. Our son-in-law taught us that. So when we grill corn, or we'll fix it also in our air fryer, and then we just squeeze fresh lime juice over it. And if you wanted to add chili powder, you could. Joe, you had a question.
How common is this? Is this a fruit or a vegetable?
It's a vegetable. Even Safeway sells it. It's really common. It's really common.
Called the Mexican potato.
Oh, is it? Thank you.
Also, my kids, we study this.
Okay, so jicama is called the Mexican potato.
And I have Hispanic parents in my classroom that had actually fried it, but you can do it in your
Air fryer?
Your air fryer and fry it.
Really?
As a potato. So, I mean,
I'll have to try that. And then how do they serve it? Do they put something on it?
Well, they put salt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they would like, the sriracha would be good on it if you like something hot.
Oh, yeah, you
Hummus
could do
is
that.
really good with hummus.
It
But
is.
we really, it's such an interesting vegetable to study because the nutrients in it are very unusual and very cancer fighting.
Really?
So
In
they would
jicama?
say to eat it every day.
Really?
Nutrition.
Okay, that's good to know. I had no idea.
What did she just say? I was kind of.
She said that it has a lot of nutrients in it, and it can help fight unusual nutrients, and it can help fight cancer. And so they recommend that you eat it every day. So, and it's really good in salads.
You're
So
still talking about jicama, right?
we're still talking about jicama. Yes. So look for it. Even Safeway sells it, and you want one that doesn't have a lot of blemishes on it, and you don't want to get a big one. You want to get a smaller one. So there you go. We introduced you to something new today. That's fun.
What are yours, woody?
Yeah, the bigger ones are really woody. Okay, I'm going to need the Vitamix again because we're going to do the Salsa Verde next, which this is like one of my favorites. So this is another recipe that our daughter taught me how to make. Because as you can imagine, she makes a lot of Hispanic food at her house. And so this recipe uses tomatillos, which, this little girl from Nebraska had never heard of tomatillos. So this is what they look like. I know, they kind of do, right? And they come in different sizes that you see. I'll pass one around so you can take a look. You bought them and thought they were Brussels sprouts? I know, right? Initially you would. But this is what they look like. Now, I looked it up, and these are actually a fruit. I thought they were a tomato or a pepper, but they're actually a fruit, right? Yeah, a berry. They're related to the gooseberry tree, right? I know, isn't that weird? So what you have to do to prep these is we run them under cold water, and you have to peel this paper off. See, this comes off, and underneath it's a little sticky. And so just run it under cold water and rub it really well and get all that stickiness off, okay? And that's all you have to do. So it's a little time consuming. So Tom found these this past week at the grocery outlet, and they came in 1-pound bags. So also sometimes I'll get them at Sprouts, but Sprouts doesn't always have, like I usually want 2 to 4 pounds, and they don't always have a large quantity. Or if you go to one of the Hispanic markets there, but they'll have like a whole big section of their produce department dedicated to the tomatillos. These are what you're going to use. So my Tom and our son, their favorite salsa is Salsa Verde. And so they were really happy when Katy learned how to make this. So what we do, and we prepped some of this ahead of time because just to save time. So we take and wash those and then cut them in half. And then I just line a baking sheet with parchment paper, and we put those all on the parchment paper. And so either put them face down or face up, whichever way, just do it all one direction. And then you take your cloves of garlic and you separate them, but leave the paper on. And then you put those on the parchment paper. And then the chilies. I used Serrano chilies. Let me see if I have one. I do have one left, so I can show you. So this is the Serrano chili, and most grocery stores have these. Yeah, they can be. The tricky thing about peppers is, sometimes I'll buy jalapenos or serranos, and they practically have no flavor. And then the next time I get them, they're so hot we can hardly eat them. So, you just don't know what you're going to get. And so it's not going to turn out the exact same every time because it's a variable how hot they are. So what I usually do is I will go ahead and seed them before I use them, but I'll reserve the seeds. And if it's super mild, then I have the seeds and I can add the seeds back in if I want it to be hotter. Okay, and so you just put the chilies also on the pan, and then you put them under the broiler for 4 minutes. You want this? And then broil it, and then pull the tray out. Now, it depends on how hot your broiler is too. So 4 minutes is just a guesstimation, because what we want is a little bit of charring to occur, because that gives it a lot of flavor. And so,
I tried to line up a couple of those along the edge that showed that.
yeah. So here you can see the little bit of charring. You see the little bit of charring. That's what we're going for, a little bit of that. And not every one of them is going to get that way because, it's just
So the ones
how it
you
works.
have, are they hotter or are they mild today?
Well, that depends on your palate. Because at our cooking class last month, some of the things that I made, one lady said, this has no flavor to me, and somebody else says, oh my gosh, it's so hot, it's at the peak of my tolerance. So that's really going to be a personal thing. It depends on.
Because you had said some are hot and some are
Yes,
not.
but it all, well, that, and you'll determine that too, because your hot level is going to be different probably than mine. So, for my daughter's in-laws, this would be like super, super mild, right? It wouldn't have any heat for them at all. So you want to get a little bit of charring, and it might take longer than 4 minutes. In our Breville, it takes about 4 minutes. That's our toaster oven, but it's small, and the broiler element is really close. But in my convection oven, it's further away, and it takes more like 6 minutes in that. Okay, so just get a little bit of charring, pull the baking sheet out, and then use a pair of tongs, and we want to turn everything over and get a little more charred. And sometimes, because the chilies are little, sometimes they get plenty of char on them just from the first time in the oven. And so when you pull them out to turn the tomatillos over, if this is already charred, go ahead and pull it out. The same with your garlic cloves. The smaller garlic cloves, they're going to char much quicker than the big ones, and so they might need to be pulled out. And then once you pull everything out and let it cool so it's cool enough to handle, and then you want to peel the garlic, and when you do, you'll see that it's really nicely roasted. See? And it gives it so much flavor. It's so much more flavorful than if you don't roast it. Okay? And that's what we're going for in this salsa is, we want a nice depth of flavor in there. And then you also want to collect any juices that are on the pan, because those juices have so much flavor. So don't waste those. So what I'll usually do is, use a spoon to pick up all of the tomatillos that I can, and then sometimes I'm able to fold the paper and use it kind of like a little pouring spout and get all the juices that way. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to put this in the blender. And we've got all those juices. It is so weird that this is a fruit.
Well, tomato is.
I know. It's true. I know.
It
But
actually
these,
grows on trees, huh? Bushes.
I don't know. Do you know? Is it a tree?
It's on like a bush.
Okay.
Okay, that's why it's a fruit. It grows on trees and has a seed.
And you just want to be careful when you're dealing with the peppers. And so the onions for this, I did rinse with cold water. just to take some of that rawness out and that really strong flavor out of them. And I just rinsed them. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in. This makes a lot of salsa. I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. Just because I have so much. And again, you can do it smoother or chunkier, however you want to do it. I'm going to add the onions. And do you guys like hot food or mild food? We got a little bit of everything. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to add we'll add one.
To taste of the food, actually.
Yeah. I like a little bit of heat, but I don't want it to be so hot that it makes me cry. But other people like that. Okay, so what I did was I just cut it open and I'm scraping out the seeds. I'm putting it in here. Tom, the salsa that I made last night, do you think it was hot or?
Which color, red or?
The green, the Verde.
It was medium to me.
It was medium, okay. Maybe we'll have this one, we'll try to have this one be mild. I'm just cutting it open. So see, this is the seeds, and that's a lot of the heat is in the seeds. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape those out. Pop that in there. Now this does thicken up when it sits overnight. I don't like that garlic. Okay, I'm going to put the garlic in there. I'm going to put the rest of these onions.
So did you remove the seeds?
I did remove the seeds. I know, I hear it. Is that yours? Is that you?
I have to finish my food stuff here before I do go out.
And then I'm just gonna pulse the cilantro in. And we love cilantro. Everybody likes cilantro. I feel sorry for those people who have the taste buds where they don't like cilantro and it tastes like soap to them. You know? Yeah.
Oh, really?
Isn't that sad? I think that's so sad. That's terrible. I'm so glad it's not me because I love cilantro. Okay. Just let it go a little bit. Now, if you want to use this for like a sauce for enchiladas, you can make it smoother if you want. But I like it chunky myself, so I'm going to stop there. And when this sits overnight, it will get thicker. I know it becomes kind of gelatinous and really thick. And so then if it gets too thick, then I just thin it with a little bit of water. It's great just with chips or your beans, or, but I also like to use it as an enchilada sauce. Because Tom and our son like salsa verde better than like a red salsa, and so it's really delicious for enchiladas. And vegan enchiladas, you know, you can fill them with all kinds of vegetables. You can do zucchini and mushrooms and onions and broccoli and cauliflower and potatoes and beans. And I also like butternut squash in it too. Is really good. So this recipe that I'm going to make, this is Dreena Burton's white bean guacamole, and it comes from her Plant Powered Families cookbook. And I'm a recipe tester for Dreena Burton. So when she's developing a new cookbook or she's working on recipes, like she just did Dr. Barnard's diabetes cookbook, just came out a couple weeks ago, and I was a recipe tester for that. And so I can't test all of her recipes because some of the foods that she uses I don't eat. They're not on my food plan, but and I'm gluten-free, but I test all the ones that I can, and I love her recipes. Yes, thank you, honey. And so I sent her an email and asked her if she would let me share her recipe out of her cookbook because, you know, she has copyright for it. And she said, absolutely. She said, just tell everybody that I let you do that. And I said, I will. I'm happy to do that. So this is an excellent cookbook, not just for families, but she does have 3 children, and a lot of the recipes are geared towards kids, and they're fantastic. And my daughter uses this constantly. Has, you know, so if you know of anybody who's plant-based, or you have kids or have grandkids, this is a great cookbook. I mean, there's everything from appetizers and guacamole to making your own fruit popsicles. I mean, it's amazing. And she's moving more and more towards whole food, plant-based, no oil, which is really great. And so, and the Dr. Barnard's new book, the recipes in there, even though it's a book for diabetics, they're amazing, delicious for everybody, right? I love it. Yeah, it's a really great cookbook. So anything with her name on it, if you try a few things, what I do is I try a few things from a cookbook author, and if I like them, and I figure out, oh, we enjoy the same flavor profiles, then it's usually a safe bet for me to buy their new cookbooks as cookbooks come out, or to use the recipes off their blog. And I'm never disappointed with her recipes. So this is a fun recipe that she came up with for her kids, because her kids love avocados, and they were going through an awful lot of avocados. And she wanted to be able to get more nutrients in them. And so she mixes it with cannellini beans. And how smart is that? Because these are really, really mild, and they don't have a ton of flavor on their own, and so they kind of take on the flavors of whatever you put with them, and they're really soft, and so they blend well. You wouldn't even know that they're in this guacamole. Okay, so I was just talking to you about the beans, and we discovered later that the camera had stopped working. So I'm refilming that segment here. So if things look a little bit different behind me and Tom's not back there where he was just a minute ago in the video, that's why. So we're gonna pick up where I had left off. So I was talking to you about the cannellini beans, and I wanted to show you the 365 is the brand that I buy at Whole Foods. And these are no salt added. These are great for travel because of the way they're packed. So everything's just gonna go into my little mini food processor. Now when I made the guac for the cooking class, I made it in my big food processor because I like quadrupled the recipe. So I'm just gonna get these white beans in here. And we're gonna put the avocado that I have already cubed, the avocado, and my little food chopper is really, really noisy, but hopefully it won't be too bad on video. You know, I always buy extra avocados when I'm going to use them for a recipe because, you know, you're kind of buying them blind. Even though they look good on the outside and it feels ripe and everything, you never know until you cut it open what it's going to be like inside. Sometimes, you know, it's rotten inside and So just buy extra. Then it has a little bit of lemon juice in it. You could use lime juice too, but I happen to have a Myers lemon tree in my backyard, and so I had fresh lime juice. Then you can either add salt, half a teaspoon of salt, or if you don't use salt, Table Tasty is a wonderful salt substitute that has a very salty flavor to it. It has a lot of dried celery in it, which makes it taste really salty. And you can buy this off of Amazon, or you can buy it from Benson's directly from them, and it's delicious. So I buy it in bulk, so I have a container of it here that's just easier to get into. And I'm going to do half a teaspoon of the Table Tasty in here. We're going to get the lid on. And then we're just going to chop it up. I'm going to have to stir it a little bit. It's being stubborn. Probably almost could have put this in my larger food processor. It's always hard to predict. Give it another stir. I really want those beans to all be incorporated. If you like a chunkier guacamole, you can add some diced avocado to it. Okay, it's looking pretty good here. Such a beautiful color. See there? It's looking really delicious, super creamy. You cannot tell that there's any white beans in this at all. It just looks like guacamole. So put this out. And the nice thing about this, I don't know if it's because of the white beans or all the lemon juice, but this does not oxidize as quickly or as badly as a regular guacamole. So I made it the night before the cooking class, and what I did was put plastic wrap on it and put it down tightly so that air wasn't getting to the top of it, and it just barely turned color. So, and like I said, if you like it to have a little bit of chunk in it, just dice up an avocado and add that once you have it mixed up. So there it is, looking beautiful. And that is the white bean guacamole. For our in-home cooking class, we didn't actually demonstrate how to make the corn tortilla chips or the corn tostadas. So we did talk to the group though about what we did, and we actually had them all prepared in advance. So I wanted to, for the webinar, just show you what we do. So these are the corn tortillas that we buy most often. Sometimes I'll get others, but these are available at Costco. And these are organic, and they're not full of preservatives. They do have a little bit of gar gum in them, but they're water, organic white corn, organic yellow corn, masa flour, trace of lime, organic gar gum. So we like these, and they also are sold like at Safeway and Raley's and the other local grocery stores that we have here in Northern California. And these cute little taco sliders are also available. And I love how little they are, and we like to crisp these up to use as our tostada shells because they're just a really nice size. So I want to show you first how we go about cutting the tortillas for the chips. So I just take a stack, really should just do two for you. Cut them in half, stack them up again. I'm going to cut this stack in half, and again, and again. So what we have discovered is that the Breville Smart Oven air fryer works really good for making corn tortilla chips, and that's where we do them most often. If you have a different brand of air fryer, just experiment with it. We have found 375 degrees for 12 minutes works well for us. You want to put them in a single layer. You can fill the whole tray, and about 12 minutes for this particular brand of corn tortilla works really well. They get nice and crisp, but they're not burned. Sometimes they'll puff up just a little bit, but that's okay. I don't mind that. It kind of makes them a little crispier. If you have a different air fryer, experiment with it. If you're using a different brand of corn tortilla, experiment, because if I buy the organic ones from Whole Foods or the ones from Trader Joe's, they take different times. So you just experiment. You can also do them in your oven. You can put them on a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper, or if you have any of these crispy cooking trays, these work really well also. And this is what we like to use for the tostada shells. Now we've tried the tostada shells in the air fryer, and they just want to puff up and not stay flat. They kind of separate and fill with air and become really puffy, and then you can't really use it for a tostada. So all we do is put them on these crisper trays and put them in a preheated 350 degree oven in just our standard oven, and they take about 14 minutes. But again, that's our oven, and that's using this brand of corn tortilla. So you just have to experiment and find out what works exactly right for your oven and the brand of tortillas that you're using. And I suggest that you just experiment, like cut one tortilla into chips and experiment and try just one tostada until you get it right, so that you don't end up ruining a whole batch. But then what you end up with are these really wonderful crispy chips. So if we're gonna go to a Mexican restaurant, I'll go ahead and bake up a batch of these, or Tom will bake up a batch of them, and we'll put them in a brown paper bag and take them to the restaurant with us, and enjoy having oil-free, salt-free chips. And then this is what the tostada turns out like, really nice. And you can put the refried beans on here, or the taco lentils, and shredded lettuce or shredded cabbage, and salsa and cilantro, and they're fun and delicious. So you can make a whole bunch of these in advance. Like, you can do the whole package if you want, and put them in Tupperware or Rubbermaid containers, anything with a nice tight lid to keep the air out, and they will stay crispy for a couple of weeks. So that's how we do our no oil, no salt corn tortilla chips and corn tostadas. Okay, you can't have a Mexican fiesta without a vegan cheese sauce. So this is my vegan jalapeno queso sauce. This also is a section of the cooking webinar where our camera malfunctioned. And so you're gonna see the front end of this. I'm gonna have to, I'm redoing, and then the back half was taped at the webinar. So what I start with is, in a saucepan on the stove, I put Yukon Gold peeled and diced potatoes and carrots, and a red bell pepper that I've diced, and a sweet onion. You don't want a regular onion really for this, because you don't want that strong bite. We want something that's a little bit sweeter and just a little more gentle. And so I buy the sweet onions at Trader Joe's, but if you can find like a Vidalia onion, that works great too. So I just, and I put garlic in it too. And I just want to take the kind of that raw bite out of all of the mixture that I have in here. And it just makes for a tastier cheese sauce. Now this is just all gonna go in the blender. So I just covered it with water in the saucepan and brought it to a boil, then let it simmer for, like about 20 minutes. Ooh, I didn't get that as drained as I should have. So I'm gonna not put all that liquid in there, because that's gonna water down my cheese sauce, and I don't want that to happen. So then I just put it all in the blender, because we want this to be nice and creamy and smooth. So this goes in. Okay. Then this is the juice from the Rotel tomatoes. I should show you these. These are the Rotel original, no salt added tomatoes. And we just find these at the regular grocery store. And all I did was drain these to get the liquid off. And I'm going to add these in after I puree the mixture. A little bit of lemon juice, and you're getting the recipe, so you don't have to have all the quantities right now. And then all my spices are going in, as well as a little bit of nutritional yeast and some oats just to help thicken it. We need the lid to this. Thankfully, I've never tried running the blender without the lid on. Okay, then we're going to start low. Helps if you turn it on. We'll use the plunger. And you know, in the Vitamix or a Blendtec, if you run them long enough, it'll actually heat it up for you, which is really cool. And look at the color. Isn't that amazing? Okay, it's nice and creamy. Now, I put a little bit of oatmeal in there, and that just some rolled oats just to help give it a little bit of thickness and a little bit of creaminess. I've also made it with hemp seeds, and that was really good too, because the hemp seeds, when you blend them, they really add thickness and a richness, and they do have fat in them. And so I thought, well, I'll try the oats and see how the oats works, because I was trying to also come up with one that would be very low fat. And I knew my friend Al was going to be here today. And he likes, and his heart, that's right. So I thought, well, so I made a batch the other day and used oats instead of the hemp seeds, because I wanted Al to be able to try this too. And so this is how it looks at this point. And still a little bit. And then I'm going to add in some cilantro. And I'm going to stir in those tomatoes.
The jalapeno powder.
Yes, let me show you the jalapeno powder. So I originally bought this at Costco. They don't have it right now, but the regular grocery store carries it. This is McCormick's brand. And so you can get a smaller jar of it. And the first couple times that I made this cheese sauce, I boiled a jalapeno in with all of the vegetables. But remember, I was talking to you about how they're very inconsistent. Well, one time it would be like super hot, and the next time it would be really mild. And so I decided to go with the jalapeno powder because I can have better control over how spicy it is. So, and today, I made it not as spicy as I would for us, because I wanted everybody to be able to try it and enjoy it. And then, you know, you can add as much or as little of cilantro as you want. And we just happen to really like cilantro, so I'm going to add quite a bit. But that jalapeno powder, I use that all the time. So even if you were making the beans, and let's say you forgot to buy the pepper, the jalapeno pepper, or you go to your fridge, you know, and it started to turn moldy. You know, that happens to me sometimes. I have good intentions and then didn't get to it. You can use that jalapeno powder instead, because all it is jalapenos that they've dried and they've ground them up. And so this is our cheese sauce. So I know, doesn't it look like cheese?
Very cheesy.
It really does. And it doesn't have a lot of nutritional yeast in it. I only use a couple tablespoons of nutritional yeast because Tom and I don't like a strong nutritional yeast flavor, but it does it gives it that umami bite to it that cheese has, which is really nice.
So that's gonna taste like cheese?
Well, depends on, it's been 5 years since I had cheese. So to me, it does taste cheesy, but if you ate cheese yesterday, it might not taste too cheesy to you today.
So it's the nutritional yeast that's making it?
Yeah, the nutritional yeast kind of gives it a saltiness, a kind of a cheesy kind of flavor. So this holds up really good in the refrigerator, and it reheats beautifully. So the one that Tom's showing you, I made yesterday, and we refrigerated it, and he's reheating it. And we like it over baked potatoes. We like it on rice. Put it over broccoli. If you didn't want it to have a salsa flavor, you could leave that out. So, don't put the jalapeno in it. You could have it just, instead of being kind of a nacho flavor, you could just leave that out and have it just be cheesy. So, lots of fun. Okay. Any other questions about that one, you guys?
How long will that sauce keep in it?
I don't know how long, because we eat it up. But
We eat everything she cooks.
I know, right? I'm going to say that at least a week, that it would last at least a week, because, it's just,
How about freezing, if you wanted to make it ahead of time,
I haven't tried that. But what I would do is I would just try a little, try like half a cup of it and see what happens. Okay. Okay. So now this is the cilantro lime brown rice. We love the rice at, Chipotle, but it has oil in it. It has a ton of salt. Bummer.
Do you want heat yet?
Yeah, go ahead and do the heat. I'm just going to get some water. So I'm just going to water saute some chopped green onions. And some garlic. We do like garlic. I'm just going to need one of the red spatulas. Thank you. And this will just give it some nice flavor. So we already cooked the rice, and because our Instant Pots were busy, we cooked it in our rice cooker, which also makes perfect rice, but you can use the Instant Pot. How many of you use the Instant Pot for your rice? Yeah, it does a really nice job too. Yeah, it's a pressure cooker, an electric pressure cooker. So if you don't have one, how many recommend? And yeah, look around. Everybody's like, you gotta get one. It's such a lifesaver to have. Well, there's vegan ones too. There's vegan Instant Pot pages on Facebook. So look for those. I have some YouTube videos where I show you how to make different things in it. And, it's really easy to use. I was a bit intimidated when I first got mine. It sat here for about a week before I got brave enough, okay, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it. What was I afraid of? I don't know. It's so easy. And now I own 3 of them, Yeah, right? I have the 3, the 6, and the 8 quart. Yes. And I have a Cuisine Art also. I actually have 4 pressure cookers.
I Googled how to cook oat groats in an Instant Pot, and she told
thumbs up.
There you go.
It's the best one. I looked at all.
Thank you, thank you. Oat groats, yeah. It's what oats come from, is the groat. It's just the least processed version, and they're amazing. And they are. You can have them for breakfast. I use them savory instead of rice, but they're also very good. Al likes them for breakfast, and I just make them. I use them in place of rice because they're really good for cholesterol, lowering your LDL cholesterol. So I try to have at least half a cup a day, and oat groats. Groats, and I have a YouTube video that explains I show you all about oat groats and how to cook them so that they don't come out like porridge, because I don't want mushy oat groats. So we're just water sauteing these. I just want to hold it up so you can see, they're not sticking, they don't burn. You can use water. It works great because we just want to make them tender. And I'm going to mix these in with our rice. And Tom, actually, I don't think that glass bowl is going to be big enough. I think I'm going to need my stainless steel. Yeah, it's just for mixing. I'm going to have to do it in here. I'm going to need the room for stirring. You think it's going to work in there?
Yeah, I might try it. If it's a problem, I'll take full
Okay.
responsibility.
You going to go get it? Okay, it's sticking just a little there. So if it starts to stick, you just add more water. It is deep. We'll see. I told everybody at my cooking class last month that I would get a glass bowl so when I'm mixing things, they can actually see it. But then I was afraid this wasn't going to be big enough. Maybe it is.
Yeah, this fits in here.
Okay, it's bigger than I was thinking. All right. We can make it
You
work.
want this in here?
Yeah, please, please. It does, yes.
Yay, look at it.
Wow, you did good. Hey, we just need to break that up. It's a lot of rice. I don't know. We're going to see if I can make that work or not. Okay, I'm going to pull it off. I'm actually ready to put it in there.
Okay, you want this gone? Are you done?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to rotate this way.
Can you unplug it?
Not till the fan's done. Let me go this way.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, not yet, but it's still cooling.
Oh, he
It's got
can't.
a cooling fan because there's a magnetic coil in there. Yeah, no, she wanted to unplug it. I wait until the fan stops because I don't know.
Okay. So now we're just going to mix those in. And then we're going to want the zest of 2 limes. And you always want to do the zesting before you juice the lime. Have you ever forgotten? I have. And then you've got this half lime that you're trying to, it doesn't work well.
What do you do with the lime after you zest it if you don't need it in the recipe?
Well, then I would just juice it, and you can freeze citrus juice. So I usually, if I have a bunch of leftover lemons or limes, I'll juice them and put the juice in ice cube trays and freeze those, and then I'll pop them out and put them in a freezer bag. And then I always have citrus juice. So
Do you like your zester?
I do like this.
What is do you know?
This is Microplane.
Microplane.
That's the brand. I've had it for probably 10 or 12 years, maybe longer. You know, if you buy a good one, you don't have to replace them. They stay really sharp. And this smells so good. Yummy. I was going to do this all ahead, and Tom said, "Oh no, you need to do it in front of them." I was like, oh, it would save time. He's like, yeah, but it's fun. I was like,
You won, and then we.
yeah, I could have, huh? And so then, you know, that just, it adds a lot of flavor.
I want to see him do it.
And then I need the juicer. The little juice, yeah, it's over to the right of the sink because I used it for a lemon.
It's got, there's a line in it though.
Well, let me finish using that. That was from the jicama.
Okay.
And see if it has any juice left. And I've
Yeah.
had a little bit.
All right.
You know, sometimes you buy limes and they're really, really juicy, and sometimes you buy them and they're hardly juicy at all. And this was one of those big bags from Costco, and they're not real juicy. So crazy.
Probably depends on how much water they got as they were growing,
Yeah.
I imagine.
It probably does.
Did you put them face down?
Yeah. And sometimes I'll put one that's already been squeezed in there, and see the leverage of it lets me get more juice out.
Or putting an X in the top of the lime.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh,
did.
is that a good, oh, because you can do it, squish it more? Let me try. Thank you. So do an X. I just did an X, and then it'll squish down more.
It's a little easier on your hands.
Oh, it is. Thank you. Woohoo! I learned something new today. I love that. Oh my gosh. Look at that. That is a great trick. Thank you, Maureen. Gonna do that again. Also, if you leave them out at room temperature, you'll get more juice out of them than if you try to juice them cold. Because then they just don't release the juice. Yes, I do that too sometimes. If I have them in the fridge, I will microwave them for 10 seconds or so just to get them. Okay, so we're going to call that good. And so then we're just going to mix that in. And then if you use salt, you could add salt. I'm not going to add salt to it, but we will have the salt shaker out for anyone who wants to. But I would like the pepper grinder.
This is a twisty one.
Tom, can you hand me?
Upside down and turn the knob.
Can you hand me the pepper grinder?
Pepper grinder.
Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. Oh, you can. Perfect. Thank you.
Does that mean enough?
No, more.
Usually thank you means stop.
No, I was saying thank you for doing that so I didn't have to stop. That's probably good. And people can add more if they want. And this just makes a fun rice. And if you want, you could add corn to it. You could add beans to it. You could make it into a whole meal if you wanted to. Not yet, but I'm going to.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sam's Club sells a big bag of brown rice that's evidently pre-cooked. And it only takes 12 minutes. And I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that. I bought it and I like it and it tastes good.
Is it because it's been parboiled?
Pre-cooked.
It's
Partially cooked.
partially cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah, we
okay.
buy those little round ones that are sealed and shelf
For
stable.
travel.
For travel. And they don't taste as good as ours, but they're great when you're on the road.
Trader Joe's has the frozen
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Frozen
Yeah.
brown rice, organic brown rice. So you have one bag, microwave, I think 3 minutes, and you've got a good serving or two of brown rice.
Successive son, he makes one to do an 8 minute.
And it doesn't have sodium, added sodium, Al?
No,
Yeah.
it's
Is
not.
Oh,
it- is it-
great.
If it's
The ingredient just says brown rice.
Perfect.
I think the discussion on rice is we buy California grown only,
Yes,
organic only,
or Indian.
and well, we haven't. So we have the
Harder to find.
Indian has less.
There's the rice.
arsenic in it.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yummy, huh?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are you guys gonna have?
I know, right? Okay, if you guys want to take a break, Tom and I are going to set up the buffet for you. And in about 5 minutes, we'll let you loose to eat. For dessert, I'm gonna make a banana mango nice cream. So this is one of Tom's and my favorite. We make it quite a bit. So you've got to start with frozen banana. And if you're like me, you probably have bananas in varying degrees of ripeness. So the more spots they get, the riper they are. So I would actually like this to have even more spots before I freeze it. And I just peel them, put them in a big gallon Ziploc bag and freeze them. And then I cut them as I need them. But if you have more time, feel free to slice them, lay them out on a cookie sheet, put them in the freezer. Once they're frozen, then transfer them to a freezer bag or a freezer container. You can also buy frozen sliced bananas. I found these were at Safeway, and I also, some other stores, I've seen them in great big bags where you could buy them, like Dole bananas, sliced and frozen. So that makes it really easy in case you don't have any ripe bananas. You can do that. And then I also use the frozen mango, and I buy this in big bags at Costco, but you know, regular grocery stores, Trader Joe's, everybody has them. It's just cheaper at Costco. So you do need a high-powered blender or a food processor to make this. You can also make it in a larger food processor. Will work pretty good. The trick is to let the frozen fruit thaw just a little bit so that the blade doesn't have to work so hard. Plus, I don't want to use any liquid. I don't want to add any liquid to this, like almond milk or some other kind of plant milk, because if you're going to freeze it, then that gets kind of crystally and kind of destroys the texture of it. Now I am going to add just a little bit of lime juice for flavor because we have the banana and mango, and I'm kind of going for that tropical taste here. So a little bit of lime juice adds a really nice flavor to this. And then a little bit of vanilla bean powder. So I buy this from Amazon. And have you priced the cost of buying vanilla extract? Like a bottle at Costco right now is about $27. It's crazy. So I find that the vanilla bean powder goes a long way. So I'm doing just a 1/8 of a teaspoon is all it needs, and it just gives it a nice sweetness. So we're gonna put the lid on. I already know that I'm gonna need the plunger on this. So I'm gonna get that ready, and I'm just gonna process it until it's smooth and creamy, and then I'll show you how I serve it up. So we're gonna start low. So that looks pretty good to me. Looks like everything got blended up, nice and creamy. So, you know, you can do all kinds of different frozen fruits. I like to do a base with banana though, but you can do cherry and pineapple and blueberry and mixed berry and strawberry and just make really wonderful, delicious, nice creams. So I'm gonna use a little cookie scoop, and it still has enough firmness to it that I can get cute little scoops going. So you could double this and make a bigger batch to feed the family. And I'm also going to show you how you can make it ahead to serve it up to more people. Okay, so doesn't that look cute? Now, I'm gonna do, I wanna do, this is just shredded, unsweetened coconut, and I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of that over the top, for flavor, and it looks pretty. And then I have a zester, And, oh, actually it's a microplane, but I use it like a zester. And I'm just gonna zest the lime. And it just looks pretty, and it adds a little bit more flavor to the top of it. So isn't that cute? Really fun to serve that up. Now let me show you, if you want to be able to serve this to a group and you don't want to have to make it all at the dinner, this is what I do. So I take a muffin pan and I line it with baking cups, and these are my favorite baking cups. These are parchment paper baking cups, and I buy these at Whole Foods. I've also seen them at some regular grocery stores as well, and they work like nonstick. I mean, you know how well parchment paper works in the oven, and these are fantastic. So they also work good in the freezer. So I would just line my whole muffin pan with those, and then go ahead and scoop the ice cream. And you know, you could do a regular ice cream scoop if you wanted to. I just think it's kind of fun to do 3 little scoops. And I would just repeat that then and do that in my whole pan. And I've served this to 24 people. So I've done 24 of these, put them in the freezer. Once they're nicely frozen, then I just take them and transfer them to a Tupperware container, a big deep Tupperware container that has a nice lid, and put them back in the freezer. And you can make this in advance, several days in advance, which is such a huge time saver. And then when you want to serve it, this will pop out of the paper quite easily, and then you can transfer it into cute little dishes if you want, or you can buy the little plastic disposable cups like at Smart and Final or a party store, and then just sprinkle the top with the coconut. And you can even go ahead and do the lime zest ahead of time and put it in the freezer, and it works just fine. So that's how I like to do a simple, easy, fruit, healthy dessert. It's great. Thank you for joining us for this cooking webinar. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a few new techniques, or are enthusiastic about the recipes you learned about today. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me by email at tami@nutmegnotebook.com. I have a YouTube channel, Nutmeg Notebook, as well as my blog, nutmegnotebook.com. So follow me there for more plant-based recipes. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy. For dessert, I'm going to make a banana. A banana. That's banana mango. Oh, that's great. Let's start over. I can't stop laughing. Okay. For dessert, I'm gonna make a banana mango lime ice cream. I gotta start over.